Today the Whiskey Road will take us to Japan. Hey guys and fellow whiskey lovers, I am Leon and this is Malt Mariners, aka Whiskey Roads, and the Whiskey Road will take us today to Japan. Japanese whiskey. It's a pretty tricky topic to be honest. For those of you who are not very familiar with the whiskey industry, I'll give you a very brief introduction to Japanese whiskey and why I have been basically keeping my hands away from Japanese whiskeys for quite some time now. Japan is actually one of the countries that has been making whiskey since quite a long time. They had their 100th anniversary in 1923. A guy named Shinjiro Tori built the Yamazaki Distillery, and the Yamazaki Distillery was destined to be very famous, at least later on in the year 2015, when I think it was that year, or maybe 14, 15, something around that area, when a Yamazaki single cask won the world's best whiskey in the Whiskey Bible from the guy Jim Murray. It's a very famous book that comes out every year, and they always rate whiskeys and always rate the favorite whiskey and all that kind of stuff. You know, give whiskeys rating and specific points and everything like that. And yeah, that was a big surprise. Media went rogue. Everybody was like, "Oh, the Japanese are making better whiskey than the Scotch," and then all like that, and like the Scots. So after that, the price, the image of Japanese whiskey obviously rose, increased massively. The prices skyrocketed, and Japanese whiskey became a very, very sought after whiskey type, whiskey category, and the prices, like I said, went rogue. So basically, there's two type of like companies that you should definitely know if you want to try Japanese whiskey. So the first one is the company from Shinjiro Tori, which is Suntory, later fused with Beam. You might know that, Jim Beam. And Beam Suntory today is one of the biggest spirits company in the world. They own in Scotland Auchentoshan, Bowmore, Laphroaig, for example, and they own obviously two very important distilleries in Japan. One of them is Yamazaki, the other one is Hakushu, which we're going to focus on today. The other one is Nikka, and Nikka was made by Masataka Taketsuru. He worked for Shinjiro Tori in the Yamazaki Distillery, and they sort of broke up early, and Masataka Taketsuru, he went to Scotland, learned how to make whiskey, for example, in Hazelburn, in Campbelltown, and in Linkwood, in Speyside. And he came back and he built his own distillery in 1934, which was Yoshi Distillery, and Yoshi Distillery. And this distillery, I'm a big fan of this distillery. It's a very good whiskey. If you want to try Yoshi, there's Yoshi. I'm actually not sure how to pronounce it. Somebody told me it's pronounced Yoshi. I'm always saying Yoichi because it's like there's an O and an I in it. So sorry if I pronounce it wrong. So this is a whiskey I would recommend if you want to try Japanese whiskey. Very fairly priced, like $65 in Germany, and hopefully roughly the same in your currency wherever you are. And an unpeated version is Miyagikyo. That's the second distillery of Nikka. So we have the Yoshi Distillery and we have Miyagikyo. So that's the two single malt distilleries from Nikka. But we're going back to Suntory because that's actually what we're going to try today. So Suntory has Hakushu and they have Yamazaki. That's the two big distilleries making single malt. And I was always a bit more interested in Hakushu because I think Hakushu is the more diverse distillery. They actually have 8 pairs of still roughly, and they have very different stills. This is quite unusual because normally you want a distillery want to have a very constant type of spirit. And if you have different types of stills, different shapes, different sizes, you'll end up with a different type of spirit. Hakushu actually wants to do this, so they have a very different type of still, so they can create different spirit types, different flavors, and they have 4 types of malt: unpeated, lightly peated, medium peated, and very heavily peated. So they are actually on the like, if you make the math, they're able to create 32 different types of spirit just from the baseline, just from distillation. They use distiller's malt and brewer's malt, and therefore they are quite interesting in terms of their distillery character. Just before anything goes into the cask, this distillery is very interesting for every nerd, for every whiskey aficionado out there, because just from the setup, this whiskey distillery is special. It's called the Forest Distillery because it's surrounded by forests. It's sitting in the Alps, in Japanese Alps. It's sitting somewhere in the mountains. So it sounds lovely. It must be a very beautiful place. And if you want to read anything about Japanese whiskey, I highly recommend getting yourself this book. It's called The Way of Whiskey from Dave Broom. And Dave Broom is one of my favorite whiskey book authors of all time. So please check out this book. It's a very, very good book about Japanese whiskey. And now we're coming back to Hakushu. I'm gonna tell you something about this whiskey. I have the Distiller's Reserve here. It's a no-age statement whiskey. It has 43% ABV, and I have the 12-year-old Hakushu here. These two whiskeys are looking like this. This is the Distiller's Reserve. This is the 12-year-old. I'm not sure if they are colored. I'm not sure if they're chill filtered. Probably they are because they have 43%. Can't tell you anything about the casks. Now we go Distiller's Reserve. This is the first time I'm trying a Japanese whiskey for a very long time. Like I said, Miyagi Kiyoshi are usually my go-to whiskeys when it comes to tastings. This whiskey costs 100 euros in Germany, and the 12 is like 150 roughly. I haven't looked into the prices in other countries. Sorry about that. But yeah, they're definitely not cheap whiskeys. They're definitely very premium, very high end, at least for what you pay for them. And now we're gonna look into this whiskey to see if it's actually worth paying that money for it. No age statement, 100 euros. Here we go. Pardon. Very light, very fruity. I actually expected this one to be a bit more smoky and a bit more heavier. I remember to be Hakushu very earthy and almost peaty. But this is very delicate. This is very Scotch-like, like a good old single malt Scotch from an unpeated distillery. Maybe something like a... Oh, that's very hard to compare. If I would need to pick a distillery... It's very zesty, very citrusy. Like, oh, this is very good. It smells very good. Almost like a Macallan. It's very hard to, like a non-sherry Macallan. It's a bit creamy as well. A bit grassy, a bit green. Very attractive nose. Very attractive nose. I'm going to 12-year-old. This is the 12-year-old. Just giving it a sniff. And then I'm trying the no-ager. Oh, that's much. Yeah, that's deeper. Fuller. More volume on the nose. Sweet. Honey. Oh, that's good. Jesus. Oh, I like that. Very, very... a slight hint of peat. Just a tiny bit. Very honeyed, like honeyed on a piece of bread with a crust that's slightly burnt maybe. A bit of herbs, something like in the Italian kitchen there's something that when they work with honey and thyme or rosemary, I'm not sure if I'm saying the right words. This is something like that. It's very attractive. But I'm going first into the Distiller's Reserve. The no-age version, yeah, this is younger. If you compare them right away, right between them, then you can see that this is the younger one. It's fresher. It's like freshly cut grass. And there's honey in there as well, but the honey is lighter, if you know what I mean. If you ever tried light and darker honeys, there's definitely a difference between them. So, cheers. I'm going into the Distiller's Reserve. Oh, that's very good. Oh, that's very tasty. Not a long finish, medium long finish, but it lingers in a very nice way. The honey stays floral. Actually, it's much more Japanese from the cliche that I had in my head, because I thought, from my idea, Japanese whiskey is very floral, almost like perfumed, and very light and very delicate. That's my idea of Japanese whiskey. For example, the Hibiki blended whiskey. Hibiki blended whiskey is the blend of the Suntory, so it's actually made from Hakushu and Yamazaki, and from their Grand Distillery, which is, I think it's Cheetah. So this is actually much more typical Japanese whiskey than I expected it to be, because I expected this one to be more peated and more rough and more... Oh, but this is very good. I have to say, this is a damn good whiskey. Damn it, I didn't want to like it because it's so expensive, but this is really good. Okay, we go into the 12th. If you wouldn't tell, I mean, we don't really know, but if you wouldn't tell me, I would say there's some sherry casks in here. Like, this smells just a tiny percentage, like 10, maybe 15% of sherry casks, but good sherry casks. Oh, this smells really good as well. I really hope that I would not like this. Cheers. Or kampai. Sorry for the noises, if you're sensitive about that kind of thing. Yeah, it's certainly more wood driven. There's definitely more cask influence in here. It's a bit drier. It's a bit more tannins. It's a bit more like slightly sour, more sour than the other one, but it's still very good. They're quite similar. It's almost like it's the same whiskey, but this one is younger, this one is older, and maybe the second one, the 12-year-old, has a higher percentage of sherry cask in there. If in the Distillers Reserve there is any, I would say it's very low. It's certainly a bourbon cask driven one. The 12-year-old, not so sure. Maybe I'm giving the 12-year-old like 80% bourbon, 20% sherry, something like that. If we're talking about first fill, obviously we're not, because we don't really know. So, or I don't know. Maybe you know. If you know, comment. Put it in the comments. Right. So, yeah. I mean, you can't really argue about price. You know, it's such an individual thing. If you think this whiskey is worth 100 quid or even more, 150 quid for the 12-year-old, I don't know. Would I buy this? I would certainly drink it. I would certainly drink this. This is very good. But would I pay 100 quid? Hard to say. If I would like a Japanese whiskey, I usually would recommend people to buy the Miyagi-Kyo if they want an unpeated one, and the Yoshi if they want a peated one. I would really love to compare this to one of these guys. I really don't want to open up one of them. But this is really interesting. Do I have like a sample? Do I have a sample? Just checking if I have a sample. Guys, I have a sample of a Yoshi. So this is what we're gonna do. For you guys, I'm going to kill one of my little samples of the Yoshi single malt. We have to do it. We have to do it for science and for the love of whiskey. Just a wee sip. I don't want to get steaming. No, do you say it? Get steaming? You want to be steaming. Don't want to get shit-faced. I think that's the one. Right. No, I just want to compare this because I really like... Yeah, Yoshi's that's much rougher. That's much more peaty. Right. Go again. Distillers Reserve Hakushu, and the third one will be the Yoshi. Distillers Reserve, malty, slight spices, bit of flowers, bit of grassiness. Good whiskey. Tasty, elegant, easy sipper. 100 quid, quite a bit of money. So, 12-year-old. Yeah, deeper, darker, more spice, more darker fruits. A bit leather, almost leathery tobacco. It has been sitting here for a while. Yeah, a bit of tobacco, hint of peat, just a tiny bit. Oh, that is very good. Oh, that is very good. It's sour. The sourness makes me think if that's peat, actually. Maybe that is peat. And now, comparing it to the Yoshi single malt from Nika. So that's actually how to say that? The competitor. The competitor on the other side, basically. Just a sip of water. Damn, I should have done that in the German video as well. But yeah, you know. So you guys get a little extra. And I'm getting a little extra too. That's good. Right. Yoshi, single malt, no age statement. Here we go. 45%. Oh, very tasty. Peatier. Much peatier. Much peatier. Sour. I would say the peat just arrives in the finish. On the tongue, it's a bit less complex actually than the other two. I would say this is quite nice. But this is usually like roughly, I think we pay in Germany something like 70 quid for this now. If I compare these, the no age statement Hakushu Distillers Reserve and the Yoshi no age statement, and this is 70 quid and this is 100 quid, I would actually say it's a fair price point. Because the Yoshi is very nice, I quite like it, but it's not as complex, it's not as refined as the Hakushu Distillers Reserve. So it's definitely more peaty. So if you're looking for a nice, elegant, tasty, slightly peated whiskey from Japan, the Yoshi is your guy, or Yoshi is your guy. But I think that the Hakushu Distillers Reserve is a bit more complex, it's a bit more refined, it's a bit more elegant. Yeah, interesting. Very interesting. I say they're all good. Like, I like the Distillers Reserve. I like the 12-year-old. They're both fantastic whiskies. They're both very good, and they both show that Japanese whiskey, Japan can make fantastic whiskey, and that they have not been making whiskey since yesterday. Hakushu, like I said, the distillery was built in 1973, so they have been making whiskey for quite some time now, and I think it's very much worth your time if you can spend the money, get your hands on a Hakushu just to try it. Maybe not the full bottle, but if you're on an exhibition, if you're on a whiskey fair, try one. Just to say, I've tried this, I've tried a Hakushu before, because I think it's a fantastic whiskey. It's a really well-crafted whiskey, and you can really see that these people know what they're doing, that they have been experimenting and refining and perfecting their whiskey for ages now. It's really tasty. It's very elegant, and I think this is really worthy of comparison with the highest premium Scotch whiskies, without a doubt. This is really good. Yeah, I really wanted not to like this because it's so expensive, but you know, it is what it is. That's my review of Hakushu Distillers Reserve and the Hakushu 12 years old. Really good whiskies, unfortunately. But yeah, that's me. Tell me in the comments what you think about Japanese whiskey. Tell me in the comments what Japanese whiskeys you think are worth your money and worth your time. And yeah, I'll see you down the road.